Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. So for this video, I'm just going to be a bit more candid. I did my research and I have some statistics for what we're going to talk about. I'm never scripted, but this video in particular is very much off the cuff. I don't really see too many Star Wars YouTubers talk about this subject, and it is quite poignant. We're always hearing about the state of Star Wars in terms of viewership for Disney Plus shows, box office revenue, and maybe sometimes book sales. I did a video on the High Republic just a few months ago. Another very interesting metric to look at is toy sales, action figures, merch. Star Wars is still a profitable brand, but there has been a significant decline I don't see being mentioned, and I wanted to break this down. This all started a few hours ago. I was scrolling through Twitter looking for a different subject, a different article about something else I was going to talk about, and I came across an impassioned debate between fans. There was an argument made that said Disney saved Star Wars, how without the acquisition, Star Wars was heading for irrelevancy. But then there was a rebuttal saying no, even though there hadn't been a live-action movie since 2005, and The Clone Wars was really the only thing to watch at the time, it was still a successful, relevant, and profitable franchise. So I did a bit of digging and I tried to uncover the truth. There are some valid points on both sides. However, the truth is pretty surprising. Despite Star Wars not having had a movie since 2005, in the early 2010s, interest was still at a very huge high, and toy sales absolutely dominated compared to today, where we're getting Star Wars shows all the time. I'm gonna break it all down, but I really am starting to think Star Wars is a movie franchise, first and foremost. The Disney Plus TV shows did have their ups, they obviously had a lot of downs, but overall the general audience will show out for the movies, and those are what people associate the Star Wars brand with. As such, frequency of releases do not equate to fan interest, quality over quantity. So let's take a look at the data. I think Star Wars toys are a very good litmus test, but I will just say as a disclaimer, as we live in a digital age where kids are into iPads and video games, the toy industry is naturally not the same as it used to be, even compared to 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Nonetheless, Star Wars toy sales are on such a steep decline. You really have to go out of your way to find the data, but it is available. Hasbro Inc. have reported their financial results for Q3 of 2024, with overall revenue down by 15%, and partner brands including Marvel and Star Wars down by 17%, from $228.2 million to $190.1 million. And remember guys, in 2010, it was $500 million. And literally a month after the Acolyte figures came out, they were on clearance at my local shops. The Jackie one was half price, I think Indara was like £3 off. Now this statistic is notable. Notice the year, 2023. This is when things really started to take a turn. We're not just talking about distribution issues and the economy. There is more than just inflation at play. Then Mando Season 3 rolls around, viewership dropped, Ahsoka then came out, viewership was also low, and this was before the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. 2023 being a dip is directly a reflection of how fans felt about buying merch for certain projects. Because Hasbro releases the Black Series, the Vintage Collection, and a good portion of those, despite being reissues and anniversary figures, tend to be from the Disney Plus shows in recent years. And this shows a steep decline. Yet, in 2010, 5 years after Revenge of the Sith, supposedly when Star Wars is meant to be what they call irrelevant, Star Wars had record toy revenue. And another argument I've seen is that the Clone Wars were really the only thing at the time, and fans didn't seem to care. That's not true, because yes, there were certainly fans who didn't like the prequel trilogy. They were still harping on about George Lucas ruining their childhoods or whatever nonsense, but the brand was still very strong. So much so, and I did my research on this, the Clone Wars line did insane numbers, not to mention Lego Clone Wars sets flying off the shelves. A year later, Lucasfilm reported their holiday retail sales were the strongest in 31 years. This was during a time where there was a live-action drought, but fans still spend their hard-earned money on the toys. So people can say what they want about clunky dialogue in the prequel trilogy, the Star Wars story was still very strong. That isn't happening as much today. It's a direct reflection of the situation at Lucasfilm, the quality of the product Star Wars is putting out, and how it's losing relevancy despite consistent content. Like I said, social media is more prominent, video games are more advanced, what young adults and teenagers consume is very different. Times have changed, so that does need to be taken into account. But even in terms of adults buying Star Wars figures, the numbers have plummeted. I'll give you a little anecdote, and I will just say this is my experience, yours may differ. Here in the UK, our big so-called comic book shop, pop culture shop, is called Forbidden Planet. They're in several locations. I often go to my local one, and the other day, I picked up the new Dedra Miro vintage collection figure. And the person behind the till, someone who sells toys every day, looked at me square in the face and said, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something along the lines of, "It's always nice when I see people buying Star Wars toys. It proves the brand is still alive." You would never have heard that in 2010, because Star Wars had so much more of a presence. In toy stores, in Lego, it was a bigger deal. I'm not saying Star Wars is dead, but this is one small screenshot that demonstrates what we've been talking about for a long time. Star Wars is still profitable. It is. But this idea the franchise was dying before Disney bought it is just not true, my dear friends. If it was, why would Disney have bought it in the first place? They knew its value, and it's not just the movies, it's not just TV shows, it's the toy sales. And so I was thinking about all of this, and it just dawned on me. With all of the rumors for the Mandalorian and Grogu, do you realize in 2026, we're going to see so much Rot of the Hutt merch? Funko Pops, action figures, and it'll be interesting to see if the return of Star Wars to the big screen is going to lead to an increase in toy sales, if it's going to re-incentivize fans to buy those figures. I've spoken to death, like many Star Wars YouTubers have, about the viewership on shows, what Lucasfilm can do for upcoming movies, but the toy sales are another important component to this. And you might say, well, Hasbro is just one small part of wider merch sales, and you're right. But historically, it's a good indicator of how many fans are going out there and spending their money on Star Wars toys. They're an important part of Star Wars history. But yes, in the 1 billion figure which is often thrown around, under Disney you have to account for the parks, for collaborations, clothing, mugs, really random bits of merch here and there. But apart from the diehard fans, the niche collectors, the niche Lego builders, Star Wars toys are not what they used to be. And yet, the quality in terms of some of the molds, their capabilities, should be so much better. I actually made a rant a couple of years ago about Star Wars toys on Patreon, and there are even tons of threads on Reddit about it. What in the world happened to the Star Wars section in toy shops? But I want to know what you guys think. Is it just a result of the toy industry just changing times? Or is it a direct reflection of Lucasfilm? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you, always.